Where the hell did you get that?
I actually got it from my dad before I started flight school. And it flew every single mission with me over Operation Enduring Freedom.
Yes.
And over 100 cats and traps. I was a Navy guy, so I was on O2D Hawkeye. And I wanted to see if I could make it a solid full circle trip here and see if you could just make a little mark on it for me.
Thank you for everything. You know one thing about being 97 and you're alert, you say what you want.
Welcome to Civvies, where we bridge military experience and civilian triumph. I'm Stephanie Holman, this season's new host and a former Army Medical Service Corps reservist turned technical recruiter. Over the years, I've tackled a variety of terrains from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. Join me as we gather stories and explore the intersection of military expertise and civilian opportunities, providing valuable insights for a seamless journey beyond the uniform. Welcome to Civvies, a podcast by MetroStar. Welcome to the Civvies Podcast, where we share stories of those who have served and shaped our world. I'm your host, Stephanie Holman, and today we embark on a journey through history with a very special guest, one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen. Joining us to guest host this special episode is one of MetroStar's own, retired Major General Cedric George. General Woodhouse is a giant in both military and civil rights history. We'll hear about his enduring fight for equality that still resonates today. This is a really powerful conversation, so join us as we honor the legacy of General Woodhouse on this special episode of Civvies.
Where's Mike? That cell phone.
Oh, wow.
Yes, sir. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
This is for you.
Yeah. I'm in Hollywood.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To be serious, the main question and why I'm here is to bear witness of just doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Now, we all have a date in our minds. New generation, 9/11. My generation was December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day.
Right.
And we were on our way to church. It was a Sunday. And my mother said, boys, America is at war. I want you to serve your country. Now, can you imagine a black woman with all she had, her two sons? We grew up with pictures of our people being lynched, tortured. But she said, I want you to serve your country. So we did it. I went in the Army, 16 and a half.
Wow. 16
and at that time, we had our diploma in hand, your high school diploma in hand. And you went to two places, Army recruiting or Navy recruiting. And this is why Tom Brokaw called us the Great Generation.
Yeah, for sure.
We were not divided, not fractionalized, but we had one goal in mind, to serve America, to serve our country.
That's so important. I really appreciate it. We're going to unpack that a little bit more.
Oh, yes.
But I have a picture of you, all of us particularly can relate to being in the car. If we are people of faith, certainly in my family, you were going to church on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
And so heading to church, the nation's been attacked, and having that conversation that I want you to serve. All right, we're going to explore that. But I want to go ahead and just open up this conversation. What's going to happen is they'll mend this together. But let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to share the stage with an incredible individual whose life represents courage, resiliency, and dedication. as you listen to him today, I want us to remember the struggles he faced. We're going to hear about those. I want you to remember the barriers he broke. And I want you to understand this unyielding spirit, right? There's a love that exudes from General Woodhouse that you can't see it, but you can feel it here in the studio. It's my honor to welcome you, sir, to the MetroStar Civvies Podcast this afternoon. We thank you for jumping on a plane and leaving Massachusetts to come here to the Virginia campus here, sir. Yes. You are an American icon. Without question, for our audiences, a 97-year-old documented original Tuskegee Airmen. They call them DOTAs. There are few remaining, and we have the privilege to have an American icon in the studio. General Woodhouse, sir, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. We
have a chance. We had a short amount of time, but I want to delve into, General, some of the historical and contemporary issues around race. We can read about this, but when we get a chance to hear it from an icon, race, military service, and really civil rights and what you've experienced. So let's get into it. You were talking a little bit about what brought you into the United States Army Air Corps. Tell us a little bit more about that. What was it like being in Roxbury? What happened? How did Pearl Harbor play a point in that matter? How did that influence that? Yeah.
Well, you put so much into that question, comment, analysis. I don't know if I could give an answer, but I can just say my experience, which is the real deal, as we say. I got on the train at 16 and a half to serve our country. When we arrived in St. Louis, we were going from Boston to Texas via Chicago. Boston, Chicago, no problem. Chicago to St. Louis, no problem. However, we were about to pull out of the station in St. Louis, and the conductor comes by and shouts at the rear of the coach, "Get off the train." So we didn't know who it was. Now, the younger generation probably does not know Archie Bunker or what he stood for, but he not too gently tapped me on my shoulder to get off the train. Now, can you imagine a 16 and a half young man with $8 in your pocket? $8. And there's a story about that. Because in the Black community, when a young man, a woman was going into the service, one of your neighbors would come up and put $2 or $3 in your pocket and said, "Son, this is something for you. God bless you, and I hope you return." Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Our community has nothing, but yet we send our young boys off with perhaps all they had.
Right.
So I got off the train, and I'm so glad you asked me that, because whenever I'm asked this question, everyone reacts of incredibility. When we were in America with a young Black boy with $8 in his pocket, kicked off the train to serve our country.
Right.
Well, of course, I got off. You don't argue in the South. So the young Black porter came up, and the station was clear. It was empty.
Right.
And the porter said, "Son, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm on the train. They kicked me off the train, going to my station in Texas, Wichita Falls." And he said, "We don't ride that train." And he said, "Son, by the way, have you ever been south before?" I said, yeah, I've been to New York. He said, no, I didn't mean that. He said, the real South, we don't ride that train. And the crux of that whole encounter was, I had a decision. And this is what the audience is facing now, whoever hears my voice. There will come times in your life where you don't know what you are going to do. So my motto has always been, and I hope yours is the same, no matter what you do, leaving the service or changing careers, follow your gut and just do the right thing. Now, I must admit, I started to go home. I started to call home, but then I remembered my folks didn't have a telephone. This was in the 40s. Most people did not have telephones. And if you had a phone, there was problems getting there. But I stayed in. I did the right thing. And when the governor pinned that star on me, I said, this is what happens. Here I was going to get kicked off and left the train with $8 in my pocket. No place to eat. But I stayed in.
Yeah.
I stayed in. And this has been the story of my military service. When we went in, all Black people, service people, according to the War Department studies, which I know you know by heart, where in the 40s there was a study made by the NCW, National War College, which is considered the Harvard of military senior officer training. You went to that. That was what we call getting your ticket punched. That study said that people like me were unintelligent, not responsible, morally corrupt, lacked physical aggression. And when people say, well, Woodhouse, how did you feel like being in an all-segregated, all-Black unit with around 2,000 or 3,000 people? I said, that was the best experience I had. Because every man I had was twice and 3 times better as a competitor. We had the only Black Air Force triple-rated pilot in the Air Force. He went to pilot training, got his wings, bombardier, navigator, Stanley Keel. Of course, that meant he was in school all the career, but he was able to succeed. And incidentally, I've been honored to attend the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
Wow.
The 80th anniversary of D-Day. And Delta Airlines and American Airlines, I'm not giving plugs, but that's what happened. They're flying around 20 of us over to Normandy. And the President of the Republic will be there. And I've been asked to give the response in French. And excuse me. The reason I'm saying I have to bring up these things because to get there, I had to surmount obstacles. When I applied to study in France in the junior year abroad, you had to speak French, of course, and it was a select group. So I applied. I was at Yale. My major was French, German, and mathematics. So after I applied, I got a letter of rejection. Mr. Woodhouse, we cannot accept you, and so forth. Of course, program was administered by Sweetbriar College. Now, that was the Harvard of Southern white girls that were interested in horses and society. So they rejected me. So my professor said, well, how are you coming? I said, I got rejected. He said, rejected? What grade did I give you? I said, 92. And I was the only undergraduate that could take graduate school courses en français. So he said, if you want to go, tell me. And I said, I want to go. 3 days later, I received a letter of reconsideration. Now, the takeaway of that is we get obstacles, but there's always one person that'll step in and do the right thing.
Yeah. I want to double click. I want to really unpack that because you gave us an example, General Woodhouse, of where that happened on the train.
Yes.
And now you've given us another example of where that happened in the admission to this program. I've heard it said it's more important about what is happening in you than what is happening to you. And it sounds like you're echoing that same message that, yes, these things are happening to you, but what's most important is what is happening in you. And I think it's a beautiful word of wisdom, and your life exudes that. You have example after example. I want to, eventually you got to training and you found your way to Tuskegee Airmen. Let's jump to, the record shows you were the pay officer for the 477th Bombardment Group.
Yes.
Tell us, I mean, I have a picture of General Woodhouse. I have a picture of you walking around with a suitcase full of money, a money bag, handing out $100 bills. Tell us what day-to-day life was like for you at the Tuskegee Airmen. What was it like with that, in that role?
You know, it's a funny thing. Being in a place all black, all the same type, and our organization sort of poo-pooed by the regular forces. The paymaster was very important, not just to dispense money. In those days, everyone was paid in hand by cash.
That's hard to believe.
You had to go to all the places. So it took me a while to realize why Colonel Davis at that time had me interviewed after he put me on orders to go. I had my travel orders. You usually pack up your bags and travel. But before I left, my boss said, Woody, the boss wants to see you. I says, what did I do? So I went over, and Colonel B.O. Davis Jr., West Point class of 36, said, Woodhouse, I'm sending you to Camp Lee, Virginia, for the budget and fiscal finance course. Then he looked down, gave me a nod. That means you leave. I said, it's unusual to have me go. And it was not until 10 years later, that I realized why he sent me. The first was, he was the only base commander in the armed forces that did not have his own dispersing number.
Okay. What does that, what, without having that number, what happens? Without having the dispersal number?
I mean, he can't make the expenditures that he wants to do on the base.
Right.
He had to call over to Canterbury, Indiana, and extend 1,000 feet to the runway to fill empty spaces on the base, any necessary repairs.
Right.
You just don't say, I need this or I need that item, you make a requisition with the appropriate number for
makes
that
sense.
item. And of course, you have to have your, just not the name-based CO. That doesn't mean a darn thing. Got to have the number.
Okay,
So
got it. Yeah, so this is, you need your own dispersal number. But that was one reason. What was the other? You said there were some other reasons why he sent you think, beyond the number.
I don't know whether he was testing me or what, but he must have known there were no black officers at Camp Lee.
Right.
And when I had no trouble checking into the BOQ, Bachelor Officers Quarters, but I went to the dining room, and Camp Lee was and still is a quintessential officers club. Starched napkins, wonderful china, polished silver, and of course, wonderful and courteous black waiters. So I went in to the club, stood by the stand, and I noticed I was standing up there 20 minutes, and people were coming, eating, and leaving, and I was still standing there.
Right.
So I called over the manager, and he told me, this is the takeaway. He said, we don't serve you here because you're not a member of the club.
Right.
I said, well, I have my TDY orders here for 8 weeks. Well, we still cannot serve you. And I said, well, I'm going to be here for TDY for 8 weeks, so
8 weeks.
let's do it. So we had a stare down. I didn't threaten him in a threatening way, even though he was bigger with me. I just looked at him man to man and said, well, let's do the right thing. So he did the right thing. He said, we'll serve you, but we're going to put a screen around you.
Mm. Yeah.
That's the right thing for him. But they brought the steak, and even though I was hungry, angry, and indignant, I couldn't eat it. I just took myself up and left.
Right. So there's a lot there, but most of us can't get our head around that happening today. But what you're saying, that was just the way it was. This was,
Yes.
this was clear racism covered by,
Mhm.
You don't have a membership. Well, yeah, I suspect most folks didn't have a membership, and then you're their TDY. So you're right. Your orders are, most folks that are not in the military, your orders are your membership.
Yes.
You're there, and you should be able to get in. And if not, hey, you come over to the membership desk, and today I would sign up a quick form, and all of a sudden I'm eating with no problem. So that was a bitter moment. I mean, to your point is, you lost your appetite because what happened is this is psychological assault.
Yes.
You don't feel safe there. You don't have no idea what they did to your food. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that's understandable. General, I want to back up because I understand your story, but our listening audience may not understand. You enlisted in the Army Air Corps. Somehow you got to officer candidate school. So that was a bitter moment. Tell us about an inspiring moment. How did you get to OCS? How did that happen?
Well, one thing is to be cultured or to be raised in the right environment. We had books all over the place.
Right.
Now, in Utah, can you imagine a black in Utah, Mormon country in 1944?
Right.
But you went and did what you were told to do, and you just accepted it.
Right.
Just jumping forward because I'm going to be asked and we're going to discuss about things, but the pattern remains, and I could tell you many things. The trains getting kicked off the train, denied being served in a officers club for 8 weeks while I was there. Here's the thread. Here's the thread that when you are prepared, when you are non-confrontational, you have to accept things and situations as they are. You can't change them. But you have inner strength, you have discipline to withstand everything. Now, I can say everything about everything that there is, but it's one thing that helped me was my military training. You see, you don't realize it, but military training gives you the ability to withstand criticism. And I haven't met any person that hasn't been criticized. It gives you the ability to maintain self-discipline. Now, self-discipline, you're a private in the service. What discipline can you have that will stand you through your life? Make your bed. That's what I did every morning. And I did that today.
Yeah, outstanding.
My wife doesn't like it because I still do the square corners. And when I make the bed, I sort of look at her. She's a nutritionist. She knows how. But your military training will give you the edge, will give you the confidence to withstand competition when you enter the job market. Now, just because you take off your uniform is but an outer signal of what's up here and what's here.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful.
No one can take that. And I guarantee you, if you are against competition as an ex-military guy and you're competing against a civilian, you'll get the job, or you'll get serious consideration, or you'll be among the final cut. Now, if you don't believe me, see the general.
I really appreciate the connection to the military service, the discipline. By the way, I still make my bed and I square my corners as well. Okay. My wife thinks I'm crazy.
I'll be there to inspect.
That's right. But here's what I love. I'm a big kind of, what's the key message? Here's what you just said. And I think our audience caught it long before I did, which is be faithful in the little things so they can become big things. Little things like making your bed, right, becomes a habit pattern, a discipline that plays over into every aspect of your life. I think it's a wonderful message. I really do. I want to go back, though, to the reading. So are you saying that the Tuskegee Airmen had a higher bar for learning? Did that come from mom, or was it all the above, right? Where did that come from?
All of the above, plus motivation.
Yeah, so just individual.
See, we had to prove not just to ourselves, but to America that we could fly airplanes. We could predict the weather. Incidentally, we had the only meteorologist in the Air Force that had a doctorate in meteorology from MIT. This guy, he could play chess with 5 people at the same time standing up and checkmate them all.
That's just amazing.
He wasn't good enough to be with the regular Air Force.
Right.
And then we all like to talk about how we were able to break barriers. We broke barriers in America. But one of the first pilots during World War II was a Canadian. He got his wings from Canada. RCAF, Royal Canadian Air Force.
Right.
And so funny, at the flight school, the instructor wanted to wash him out. And washing out at that time meant it was a way to maintain a quota. If they, if the government wanted 30 black pilots, if they had 35 and perhaps 34 qualified, if the quota was 30, you washed out the other 5. That was what is called the real quota system.
Right, right.
So Claude Rowe, he was about to be washed out, and the CO looked at the recommendation of the instructor and said, "Hey, we can't wash this guy out. He's already had his wings." See, this is the way it was.
Right. Right.
And just maintain faith. And I can't emphasize enough what military life has meant to me. I've been to churches, organizations, but the military to me is the best, the first, only, and best organization in the United States that encourages equality and ability, and the most important thing, recognition of authority.
Yeah.
No matter what rank you are, you respect your superiors. And when I received my doctorate from Norwich, the commencement speaker was 4-star General Dunford. And
right.
we were sitting next to him.
Great Marine.
Throughout 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, Woody, you're a general now. He says, I want you to call me Joe. I said, no, sir. Chief of Staff, I got 1/2 of 1 star, and he's 4-star Chief of Staff.
Right.
But I said, no. To me, you'll always be General, Chief of Staff. And there's a man of culture, a man of faith. I'm not pushing religion, people, but we all have to have some basis, some firm foundation to keep you on the narrow, straight path. That's my secret.
Yeah.
That's my secret. Now, whenever I go out, I may be anticipating a question. You go out here, 95, 97, I just had a big birthday party. But we all have to have a background upon which to build our lives. And that background, if your life is in the military, it will help you. Now, when you're transitioning, and this is very important, when you take off your uniform and you go into civil life, we used to call that in World War II, we used to call that the real world. The real world. You're going back to the real world.
We still say the real world, right?
But the real world is the same as the military world, except in the military we have uniforms. And we respect rank not too much, but that's not determinative.
Right.
But the training that we get in the military is going to enhance our selection. Now, if you're out, you're out. But when you're out, you still have to be in some place. You have to live.
Right.
You have to keep yourself dignity. You have to support a family. So look at your military not as something in the past. I mean, in my generation, you peel potatoes. No one's peeling potatoes today, let's face it. I mean, everything is automated. But you will be faced with mundane tasks.
Right.
And mundane tasks, you'll be used to it. You'll excel. And I've spoken with a lot of employers. They say, well, Woodhouse, what do you think of this person? What do you think of that person? The first thing I say, that person's military.
Very good.
Even though he's a Marine, a Navy, or what. So I can't, if there's any big takeaway here, subscribers, and I hope we have a lot of subscribers here. I want thumbs up. I want approval. And above all, I want you to consider seriously. You're going to consider, but consider seriously the value your military training will take you to the next step. And the next step will take you to the next step.
Right.
And that'll take you a long way.
Right. And your story arc reveals what you just said, right? You transitioned out of the military, went to the reserves, you went through and landed in the halls of Yale. You said it earlier, but I want to make sure our listening audience hears it. This was not like, you landed in Yale. That's like, you don't just slide into Yale and then BU School of Law and a very successful career leaving the military, going into law practice, the first of the first. We don't have time to record all your, but you did that and remain a vocal advocate for civil rights. You, by all measures, had a successful transition.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you said. One of the big words of wisdom was recognize your military service and the things it gave you. I really appreciate that. The other thing you talked about was discipline. The discipline is important, and that discipline's going to just play out in other areas. And it might be small, mundane things, but like we said earlier, being faithful in the little things that allow you to do big things, right? Yeah. Maybe it is peeling potatoes. Maybe the boss, you show up day one, the boss says, I want you to peel potatoes. You're like, wait, what? Yeah. Right? But you do that. General, any other words of wisdom for people transitioning from the military and trying to figure out kind of what's next for them? Which, I'll be honest with you, that was a little unnerving for me when I was here I was a 2-star general, we're transitioning, and it was a little like, okay, what do I do? I've been successful in the military. Will I be successful in the private sector? Mm-hmm. Any words you would give the listening audience around that transition and how you prepared for that?
What I would say is, and this is in anticipation of the next question or the unanswered question.
Right.
Is you look at me, see what I'm doing, walking around, 2 or 3 languages, fluent and so forth. What's my secret?
I'm going to ask it. What is your secret, General?
I'm not telling you my secret because my secret is my secret. But you know what?
All right.
You have a secret and I have a secret. The trouble is, most of us don't listen to our secret. If your secret body tells you, Joe, only 2 martinis tonight, and you have 4, you have not listened to your secret.
Great point.
And I encourage my real word of wisdom. The final takeaway is listen to what you have going for you at that time.
Right.
Now, it's important to have that foundation.
Right.
So have your objective, but when you're getting out, you don't have an objective. Mm-hmm. But you think, look the field around, look at your assets. If you're in avionics, don't look to go into cyber warfare.
Right. So know your skill set.
Know your skill set.
Right.
And everybody has a skill set.
We do. I love it. I want to go back because I think the listening audience won't appreciate what the Tuskegee Airmen role was in integration in the military and really President Truman's decision to end discrimination. So I want to ask you, Help us understand, General Woodhouse, how important the Tuskegee Airmen experiment was. How important was that, right? I mean, we read it and we don't understand the social and racial, the atmosphere that was going on in the nation. This story is an American story. Tell us a little bit about what that was like and why is that so important to Americans and the world to understand that it needed to be successful. Tell us a little bit about that.
That, to me, I'm a student of history. There's very few people in America that have been a Negro for 97 years. I'd like to meet that person. What we have to look at is the progress of America. And the progress of America is based on ability and perseverance. And no matter what the obstacles you have, excellence triumphs everything. When I was 20s and 30s, no blacks in football. 20 years later, no black QBs. I'm not just emphasizing black. The same thing for black people could be said for females. We have female baseball managers, females in space. Now, that was unheard of in my generation. But this is the denouement, the progress that America has. America is making. And to me, and I do belong to a few organizations, to me, the military is the best example of America today. So if the military is use your military experience, you can't buy it. The military pays you. Doesn't that sound ridiculous? You get the best training in the world, and the government pays you. Cadets at West Point, you go to flight training, professional training. They pay you. You get money. The government pays your wife allotment, pays so much for children. Now that sounds good military. Well, what is that going to do for you when you get out? Use what you had in the military.
Right.
The military forces you to save, forces you to make up for your allotment, forces you to keep a clean house. Your quarters are inspected.
Right.
Now, it's not that I'm so much involved in the military. I am. But I advise everyone that's able to pursue a military career and use that to make the big transition. And believe me, it is a big transition to put your uniform out, to have to go out and buy a suit. And they can't be regulation suit. You may have your camis, but you can't wear those for a job interview.
Right.
You can't wear your Levi's. You can't have your baseball cap on backwards. I just can't emphasize how much the military has meant to me.
Right.
And what that has helped me to do everything that I set out to do, because I had the basic discipline.
Yeah.
The first black diplomatic courier. I don't want to emphasize me. I'm just saying I was a diplomatic courier. 99% of America doesn't even know what a U.S. diplomatic courier is. It's the only job where you don't take an exam other than your physical. You're appointed. Somebody appoints you. I got my appointment. And the diplomatic courier travels the world in my time first class, diplomatic number 1. Mine was 7731 Can you imagine your passport number, 4 digits?
Right.
With DIP in front of it, with the gold. Incidentally, if anyone goes up to Logan, there's a mural of me.
There is.
At the airport. And General, I'll see that you get a copy.
Right.
Postage prepaid. I know how your economy is at your company. Tell the boss that.
I love it. There is so much there. And General, I am personally moved. I used to use this metaphor when I was promoted. I would say, I stand on the shoulders of giants. And rarely do you get to be in the room with a giant of whose shoulders you do stand on. And so this is deeply personal to me. My father cried when I made Lieutenant Colonel. He saw with his own eyes. He remembers. He joined a segregated army. He served in Korea, 3-4 tours in Vietnam. And he remembers the army he joined. And when he saw me pin on Lieutenant Colonel, he cried like a baby. I didn't understand it fully until I began to do more research in terms of where our people have come from, and to talk about how the Tuskegee Airmen, to your point, they sustained, they did not let up. They did not let the atmosphere break the spirit. And the fact that I'm sitting here, I will tell you, the fact that I'm sitting here next to you, sir, is an outer body experience. I am deeply appreciative of what you and the Tuskegee Airmen did. You proved beyond a shadow of a doubt the capabilities and heroism of the Black soldier. If you didn't do that, let me be clear to you, if you didn't do that, there would be no Major General Cedric George. I promise you that. So this is deeply personal to me, and I want to thank you for just what you mean sitting here. You, our listening audience doesn't know that the General gave me his squadron flash of the 99th. I have it on my lapel, and I'm deeply honored. I'll cherish this thing. I'll go down swinging. If they try to grab it, General, I'm going down swinging. I'm not going down without a fight.
Yeah.
I want to thank you. My father never lived beyond that. He passed. That was the last rank he saw me pin on. And I believe that he was smiling from heaven when his son pinned on Major General in the United States Air Force. It was a deeply emotional time. I still remember that promotion. And I was like, Dad, what is going on? And he just told me, you don't understand. If you saw a black major back in the day, it was like it's interesting. I got to experience some of that. I would, walk into the airport. I almost got to the point where I couldn't wear my uniform when I was trying to relax on an airplane, because not only do people rarely see a general officer, they don't see a whole bunch of black general officers. No. And people would walk up like I was almost like a celebrity. They would touch me and go, I've never seen a general, and I've never seen a black general officer. And so there's something very special. I understand that. You understood the weight that was on you. Mm-hmm. I would suggest to you, what would you say, what would you say to this next generation, right? What do you pass along to those who have not worn the uniform, to your point, who need to continue to advance what has been done before them? What would you offer to not only me and those generation of airmen, soldiers, guardians, Marines, right? What would you say to them?
They have to be true to themselves.
Right.
But when you're true to yourself, you have to have some basis for yourself to be worthy.
Yeah.
And that comes from home, church, literature. Now, I give I'm a bibliophile. You know what a bibliophile is? My place is stacked up with books, because there was one time I would make it a point, don't try this, to read a book every day, or at least 1 or 2 books per week.
Wow.
I still have a book there that I'm involved in.
Beautiful.
People have fonts, F-O-N-T, not printing fonts, but come thou fount of every blessing, the big Mormon hymn. We all need a basis, something that is bigger than ourselves. Now, something always has to be bigger than yourself, because if you are yourself without growth, if you don't grow, you decay.
Right.
And when anyone says, well, America is a racist country, I say yes or no.
Yeah, tell me more. Tell me more.
You can be who you are, regardless of others doing their thing or exhibiting what they want to do, say or do about you. And one example that I never forget, which is really a high and a low. Now, when you get your acceptance from your college of choice, it's a big, impressive envelope with the seal and the pictures of the university and so forth. So Yale, the top schools, the big schools, their acceptance package is humongous. You think you were being given $1 million. So my letter of packet of acceptance, they don't just say, you are accepted, they do this, and, the profile and wonderful pictures of the campus that you hardly ever see when you get there. When I received mine, my mother and grandmother, they were in the room, and they said, oh, son, we're so proud of you. You're going to Yale, and they were hugging me. So my grandfather was sitting in the corner. He was the most educated man I've met, with a 7th grade education from Virginia. Of course, he was not a sharecropper. He was one of the house Negroes descended from Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
So they learned how to do this and that. So he didn't say anything, and my grandmother said, William, get up and say something to the boy. This is the way Black communities communicate, Say something to the boy, not say something to your grandson. Say something to my boy. So my grandfather gave a smile and a smirk. A smile and a smirk, that's what it was. And so he came up to me and said, who are you? So my mother and grandmother knew where he was going. Oh, William, don't start it. He said, I ask you, who are you? I said, Grandpa, you know who I am. I'm your No, I didn't ask you that. I said, what are you? And my grandfather did something that he never did in men in our family. We don't kiss each other on the lips. We kiss the women. We don't kiss the men. So he kissed me on the lips and whispered in my ear, I'll tell you what you are. And he used the N-word. That's what you are. And my mother and grandmother, oh, William, don't say that. Oh, they, were apoplectic. But you know what? The first day I got to Yale, I got some lovely letters under my door unwelcoming. And I should have saved them, but I ripped them up and I smiled and said to myself, Grandpa, you were right. So that gave me courage. And
Right.
of course, something like that, who are you going to go to?
Right.
You're not going to the housemaster because you don't know whether not that he would write it, but somebody wrote it in my entryway. All colleges have entryway. So somebody wrote that. And whenever I go back to my reunions, I look around and I say, who wrote that letter?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But spiritual strength you get. Some people get strength from music. Some people get strength from athletics. But whatever strength is your source, concentrate on that.
Yeah, so important. Yeah.
Concentrate on that.
I find it fascinating that your grandfather is asking you the core question, who are you, right?
Yeah.
It's a deep question. It could be, and to your point, it's not what family you're from.
Yeah.
And it reminds you what I took from that. And yes, they were bitter and they were also inspiring things. What I took from that is you must understand who you are. Keep exploring, keep being a student of yourself. It gets back to what you said, which is your secret is listen to yourself and keep learning from yourself. They're so powerful. It's so powerful at so many levels. To your point, because you can't control what's going to happen around you. You can control what's going to happen in you. It's back to that point again. It seems to be a theme as we go through this. I think it's beautiful. Tell me, you talked about race in America. Let me just hear a little bit. I'm just, the context. You're a learned man around the globe. In America here, we have some folks saying there's never been a race issue in America. We've never had race issues. You've had folks that are trying to erase what is our history, American history, right? We just go, I don't like that part of it, so I'm just going to delete it. I'm going to act like it never happened. At the same time, to your point, I love this. There is a lot of progress, and the military was a major change agent in this nation. It informed the civil rights. It informed, because it wasn't just we're going to do this. There was growth. There was proof. There was evidence that you could not continue to make a case that the Negro soldier was only good at this. It was refuted completely by the Tuskegee Airmen. But tell me a little bit about all of your experience. How does it inform kind of your view of race in America? Maybe give us a little bit on that. Where are we? How would you assess race in America and what we're doing as a growing country, to your point?
Well, the first thing I would honestly have to admit to myself that racism does exist in America. Now, with my accomplishments, the people I've known, the places I've gone, people would say, oh, Woody, there's no racism in America. Look at what you have done. Well, I've done and accomplished in spite of what's going on.
Right.
You see, the tyranny of words, that's what I usually use. Tyranny of words.
Mm-hmm.
How one word can cause you to react, like Pavlov's dog. He heard a bell, he salivated. Everybody knows that. So the tyranny in America is this. Everything white is pure. Everything black is evil. Now, you have angel food cake. What color is angel food cake? White. What about devil's food cake? That's black. When you want to commend somebody or just give them a slap on the wrist, you say, that was a whitewash. Whitewash. You just glossed over the thing. And when you want to say something bad about a person of color, what do you say? black male.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? Tyranny of words. So when we hear white, that doesn't mean it's all good or all bad. When you hear black, it's not all good and not all bad. Final takeaway on that is when you see John Jones murdered someone, it's usually black. John Jones, black, killed somebody. Now, the tyranny of words, and that's what settles in our mind, is most blacks, if not all blacks, are murderers. Now, if that black is someone outstanding, when you see Tiger Woods, you say Tiger Woods, outstanding black golfer. Oh, Tiger Woods, this. When you see Venus Williams, tennis player, either one of them, Venus or Serena. I have never seen the word Venus Williams black tennis star.
Right.
Venus Williams star. So let's not be tyrannized, ruled, or have an idea or a concept of action put in our heads. We don't want to be like Pavlov's dog. Now look up Pavlov, Pavlov. That is classic in psychology.
Right.
When you hear a word, you should not consider or make a judgment on that fact,
Right.
or base all your future encounters with that one word, white or black.
Right. I really appreciate that mental model around the tyranny of words as you think about race. And the walk through our history was really important. General, you have the ear of presidents, secretaries, ambassadors.
Yeah.
I mean, the list goes on. Generals. I mean, firsthand, I can think of, you talk about General Dunford, CQ Brown, our chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Secretary of Defense, Austin. The list goes on and on.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, we got a glimpse of it in this last few minutes here. What do you do to keep yourself fresh, to ensure the words of wisdom, the things you bring out of you? Like you started saying, this is just me. What do you do? Give us a feel for how you stay sharp intellectually, physically, spiritually, emotionally. What do you give us? What General Woodhouse does?
Well, first thing, I'm with 2 generations of black preachers, minister. You know where I am every Sunday.
So big
from
faith.
Morning, afternoon, and night.
I love
and
it.
I'm there, and I took my son. He was an acolyte at Trinity Church. That's a big church in Boston, one of the 10 most outstanding churches. I didn't take him there for the exterior things, because I was christened in a very small Episcopal Anglican church for black people.
Mm-hmm.
And that church was, and still is, the same way when I got christened 95 years ago.
Wow.
It was in a, typical black neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And it was run by the Cowley Fathers. And every church, mostly, they have their religious orders.
Right.
And the Cowley Fathers, they were the orders trained to communicate with black people in the Caribbean. That was their sole mission. And it's so funny that sometimes when you're the underdog, you outperform. In other words, like, say, some Catholics can be more Catholics than they're Catholics. So, very primitive church, overhead rotating fans,
Wow.
pine altars, everything very fine. But I would take my son there. He was an acolyte and so forth. And I'd take him there to see where his father was baptized and the progress that has been made.
Mm-hmm.
Because the churches that I'm going to now, I'm not criticizing any denomination, but every denomination was segregated. And they'd say religious service in Christianity was the most segregated hour in America.
Right.
Most segregated hour. The secret is that when you find what you need to do, you have to have a reservoir from which to draw.
Right.
If you're thirsty, you got to have water. And back to the military again, the military to me has been my foundation. It takes me anywhere. The main thing is authority. General Dunford say, call me Joe. Represent and respect authority. No, I can never call you Joe. To me, you're general. When I see a bishop, your worship, you bow and show respect to him. Now, when you can respect people, what does that mean? It means you respect yourself. It means you respect your wife. It means you respect your husband. Now, I'm not preaching any role of fidelity or infidelity, but this is your inner strength. This is my inner strength. This has enabled me to be able to accept nodding in the officers' club. Of course, one question most people ask, well, Woodhouse, where did you eat for the 8 weeks while you were there?
Where did
I eat? Number one, I could not eat in the enlisted mess. You're an officer.
Right, you're an officer.
Have you heard of the snack bar? 3 meals a day, but I stood it. To get the appropriation number, and of course my grades had to be a little above average. In fact, they were at the top. Because I didn't go to the officers' club. I stayed at home in the BOQ with the books. And you make what you have, but you got to have a foundation, people.
Yeah.
And there's no better place than the military. It's almost like being in a monastery. You're not going anyplace. You're going to be like everybody else. And when you are disciplined, it causes you to think differently. When I'm with people, group of men, women, I can tell right off who's been in the military.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the military people communicate differently than civilian people. And when in the military you go for a job interview, guaranteed you'll get an edge. Why? Because if your interview was a military, oh, you Marine? Where'd you do your basic? Oh, I did my basic there. Okay. You go in as a strict civilian. Oh, what did you do? Oh, I was at Joe's auto body shop. Or I worked in the post office. Now, that's good. But after that, you have no basis of commonality. In other words, you won't get the job.
General, I want to, you're one of the surviving, Tuskegee Airmen. You represent so well. I'm certain I'm in groups of people that talk about what's the enduring legacy? How do we remember there are generations that further and further away from, we won't be able to hear from Tuskegee Airmen, right? So
I'm one of the last.
Right. So how do we remember? What would you want? You've given us a bunch of nuggets of things that I love. This wonderful piece around know yourself like an empty vessel. Feed yourself. Listen to yourself. What do you need? And then what you have said so beautifully is don't settle for just the low bar. Keep feeling yourself. To your point, you don't know when someone's going to call you for an opinion on something that you don't want to be making up on the fly. Yeah. Like I got a sense you continue to feel yourself because you don't know who's going to call you. It could be the president of the United States. You have an audience with the president of the United States. And the president of the United States, President Bush, handed you your medal. And I thought, he touched that medal we touched today. He touched that medal.
I have to put this in, General, if I may.
Right.
I maneuvered myself to get him to give me my medal personally.
Oh, wonderful.
It was a maneuver. So whenever you go out and you see Secret Servicemen around the door with their earplugs and their glasses, that's the door the president is coming in through.
I love it.
So I maneuvered, got there, and he was coming out and doing this, and I shook my hand, and he presented me the medal. And I said, Mr. President, I'm Woody Woodhouse, Yale class of 52.
Oh, gosh.
He was like 60.
60, yeah, right. He's a
So
Yale
he whispered something in my ear, and we both laughed and laughed. So the president, Lee Archer, shot down planes and all that stuff. Right. He says, Woody, what did the president say to you, And I was so embarrassed, and very few people that I would tell what he told me, and I'll share it with you. Beat Harvard.
He said beat Harvard, like spoken like a Yale man, right? Yeah, so that's so funny. Is there a word, General, that you would tell us of how you want the Tuskegee Airmen remembered and honored? What is it you would tell us?
Well, it's something I've lived with throughout my life, To do anything, you have to start with a foundation.
Right.
You don't put the walls and the ceiling and the alcoves. You got a good foundation.
Right.
And the foundation has to be on solid ground. The foundation has to be made of brick and stone. Now, how do you get brick and stone in your life? You mind your folks. You make your bed. You read. If you don't want to read, do something with your hands that dexterous. If you like math, if you like music, do something.
Right.
Other than playing games.
Right.
Other than hanging around with the wrong people. Adopt some type of faith. You got to have something to believe in, because the world is not too generous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing I always say, and it's hard. Not everybody in the world loves you, except your mother. Dad will kick you to the curb. And this is what goes on throughout your life. And I can't emphasize this again. The day you sign your discharge papers and you're handed your honorable discharge with your sheaf of papers, and you hang up your uniform, and then 2 or 3 days later, after you're out, you automatically go to put on your uniform. I know you've done that, General. I mean, you would think you're dreaming. But you know what? That's a happy experience.
Right.
Because wherever you want to go, you can go. Whatever you want to do, you can do.
Right.
Why? your foundation has been laid. And look at the military, unless you're going to advance, unless you want to be a 2-star general, it's time to say sayonara, goodbye. But it's goodbye to one phase of your life.
So important. One phase.
One phase of your life. But it's traumatic because a lot of people can't handle it.
Right.
You're not going to get the same benefits. You're not going to be paid extra if you have another child. You won't be able, you'll have to pay if you want to go to computer school. If you want to go to avionics training, you're going to have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So realize that before you leave, before you're discharged, get everything. So that makes your disengagement beneficial to you and above all to your employer.
Yeah, General, I want to thank you. This has been a wonderful time with you. We could do this. I could go on all night long. I think our production staff would love it, but we have to be good stewards of your time and energy. Yeah. And I want to get a good meal in you before we send you back down to our nation's capital. General, I want to thank you on the behalf of not only the nation, I would simply say all of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine guardians of color who can't say thank you, who can't sit just an arm's length away from you and say thank you for what you did and what you are doing, because it's not just what you did, what you're doing. You represent not only people of color, but this nation with a dignity and class that is bar none. Simple as that. And it's no wonder that you were an ambassador for us, right? Yeah. Carrying a passport that gives you access to represent as a viceroy for this country, because you earned that right. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the example you mean to me. I'll tell the audience, General Woodhouse called me out of the blue and we had a wonderful exchange, but he said, just like he did when he walked in the door here today, he said, General, I'm proud of you. And my heart sunk. It's so important. And I do that. I will follow your example. I do that with folks as well. And like you do, you don't just do it to me because I'm a black general officer. You do it because you take a look at the foundation. I appreciate that. And I will do that. I will do that for you. I will pass that along and make sure that I give that which has been given to me. So I want to thank you for that, sir. That's my last word. Let me give you the last word.
Well, what time did you say dinner was?
Dinner's at 6.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is all mine, and I wish all of you success, happiness, and I hope you all can retire with full pay and benefits when you get 70. Thank you.
General Woodhouse, thank you, sir.
I want to present you something, a symbol of our friendship, but above all, your ability. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.